Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and I'm really pleased, again, to be with Hughes, which is a founding global industry partner of the IFBTA. And with me today is Tim Tang, who's a business technologist, and Carl Udler, the Senior Director of Marketing. So welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks.
Now I do say again, because we've done this before, because you guys have, as a founding, have been with us really since the beginning. But I'm not so sure that everybody understands, because over time things change, where Hughes is today and exactly what it is that you would consider your main points that you want people to know about Hughes. So maybe Carl, since marketing is in your area, perhaps you can go ahead and give us that overview.
Gladly. Thank you, Rob. Great to be here. Thanks for having us back again. I know we work with you all throughout the year, and it's just terrific to be sitting here with you. Hughes is a multinational corporation. We focus on specializing in secure managed services that include SD-WAN, network services, cybersecurity, and digital media services.
Okay, so, those are a number of different things, but perhaps, we might want to, because I got some bullet points out of that one. So perhaps we want to talk about a few of the different things. So first of all, you would want to be known as a managed service provider first and foremost?
That's right, a managed services provider. So all the services that we provide the service, we provide the installation, the maintenance, and the support. So we're the one-stop shop to make sure that everything works right with all of our services at every location.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, so I'd like to unpack that. So when you say all the services that you provide, what are the specific services? Because I think as a managed service provider, it's more, and managed service itself is a service, right? So you're probably supporting things that are not necessarily always provided by Hughes as well within the infrastructure. So what does Hughes specifically provide in its portfolio, and then what does the bigger scheme look like?
Sure, so let's talk about managed services from a network standpoint, our managed network services. Companies that have large networks that need to connect each remote location back to their headquarters or data center, or even interconnecting them, will put in a large-scale, robust network. Hughes provides that services. We work with the brands, the companies to design a network that meets their needs. Once the network's designed by our network engineers, then the installation team will go in and we'll provide the connectivity, the security, and the support. So if we look at each of those individually, we provide the connectivity. Hughes is a large internet provider that has partnerships with all the providers throughout the US. So what we can do is get the best service available at a particular location, have it installed, and then Hughes manages it. So that's number one, the connectivity. For number two, the security, Hughes will provide the router, the firewall, to make sure that everything coming in and out of that location is secure. Everyone wants to stay away from all the malware and the ransomware and the hackers that are out there, and that's what Hughes works on to prevent. And then lastly, number three, the support. Everything that we design and install, we maintain. When a location has an issue at a site, they make one phone call to Hughes, we take care of it and resolve it on the first time.
So I think what you're saying in this is you really are almost a one-stop shop. You may have partners because you can't necessarily have access everywhere, but you may have partners, but you're going to take responsibility for it. You're going to pull it in, and a person can come to you, and I did hear the word design in that as well, right? Because a lot of people think they should design this themselves or they got to go elsewhere. So in this case, you're really going from the very start, which is thinking about how it really should be, designing it, to then procuring and putting in place the pieces, installing, and then continuing to do the support. But it's one place.
That's exactly right. We have Mensa caliber network engineers that will sit down and design the proper network for you. Then our installation team will go out and install our services at your location, whether it's managed network services, whether it's cybersecurity, or whether it's digital media services. And we do that at a mutually convenient time for each location. Then from a service standpoint, as the service is ongoing, Hughes is typically the focal point of all applications in the store. So if something goes wrong or you need to add something to your network, it's very simple to work with Hughes, get it added, get it supported, and get it installed.
Well, there are a lot of applications in the store, though. So are we talking about the specific applications as they relate to network management, to office administration? Are we talking about everything down to the point of sale, the credit cards? And all the other applications.
Yeah, everything you just said. Each store, each location is different. And we know that some locations are more complicated than others. For example, in a large retail store, they're going to have POS applications. They may have refrigeration services applications that run over it. In the retail petroleum gas industry, they'll have tank monitors, and they'll have other regulatory items plugged into the network, video cameras, safe systems, all sorts of things are plugged in. It's a very complex environment.
Right. So you're continuing to add to our list of conversation points. So I want to just sort of hit a few of the ones here in the overall overview as well, because I think that they're important. So the one thing that I got out of it is that, and I got a number of things, but every store is different. Even if they're all within the same brand and they're franchisees, they're going to be different. Their locations are going to be different, which is why you need to have a series of best-of-breed providers, but you're going to choose the best one. But at the end of the day, it all has to ride on a backbone. It has to be safe and secure. And that is where your role is, to make sure that their setup is consistent in each location, even though locations are different from what you said, software and a number of those things. Did I get that right?
You certainly did. And when we go out and do an installation, for example, we will provide a copy of what the router configuration looks like, both to the brand, to the location, or the franchise, depending on the environment. So when our installer arrives on site, everyone knows exactly how the configuration will go. That provides additional support in the future when there may be an issue at the site. One classic example we come across is a location will be having communication issues at, say, 11 o'clock on a Thursday night. If you pick up your phone and you call your local provider for support, will they answer the phone and help you support your location at 11 o'clock on a Thursday night? Maybe, but likely not.
Yeah, if you have locations, by the way, from Hawaii to, wherever, to Alaska, to the East Coast.
That's right. Now let's take that example.
Worse, right?
That's right. Let's take that example and go to a Saturday evening or even a federal holiday, July 4th.
Which can be peak
Christmas.
times.
That's exactly right. Are they going to pick up? Probably not, but your store's still operating. You still need the connectivity. You still want the transactions to process, and you still need all the other systems working because you're in business. Call Hughes. We're open 24/7, 365. We provide the proper support. We know your configuration. We know your systems, and we know the support process. So we work with anyone from the brand down to the store manager.
You establish the service level agreements there,
Exactly
even
right.
if the other side of those service level agreements, because they're calling you, may not be as strict and as stringent and as secure as yours.
That's exactly
At least
right.
they're going to get that response, and then you're going to follow up and then enforce the other side of that. But I think that the other piece and the other point that you made here is that they do need a place to call, but more and more, and we're going to talk about applications and things in a minute, but more and more, as more of these applications and the connection points are actually not residing at the store, that connectivity is almost like, I used to say, like the pilot light, with the oven, right? If you lost the pilot light, you're shutting down the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Well, today, if you lose that connectivity, you could be shutting down the restaurant because of not everything, even in a light version, can be stored down at the unit. So you're making sure the pilot light stays on, right?
That's right. We're the backbone for the store.
You're the backbone. And then the other piece I don't want to miss, and then I'd like to talk about some of the very specific services that you do, because there's so many definitions out there on them, is I don't want it to be lost that you work across multiple industries. And even though they may have sounded different, I spend a lot of time at the same places where you guys are at, and we look at the C-store industry, and you look at hotels, and you take a look at college university campuses, and those, and general retailers, they all fall, you mentioned it, they all fall within the scope. And
That's
yet
right.
today we don't know where food service, since we're the Food and Beverage Technology Association, we don't know where food service is really going to be sitting. And the answer is probably all of it, including some vending machines somewhere. And so that backbone is needed across. So the very fact that you can do consulting up front and help in design actually also says you can help an operator to grow into some of these other industry segments.
That's exactly right. And speaking of growing, in the franchise business model, right? It's a business model. It's not a vertical in and of itself. There are unique business attributes that we're able to handle and work with that both help the brand and help the franchisee. For example, the brand wants a certain level of data security, right? everyone knows PCI compliance up to 4.0 and all sorts of malware that's coming in. They want to prevent
But the
ransomware.
franchisees don't want to know about that.
Well, sure, they don't want to know about it, but most of the exposures are at the franchisee level. The brand may have no locations of their own, but the brand wants to protect their name. So we'll work with them to design the proper cybersecurity for their locations. Then we'll work with the brand to do the marketing or the messaging to the franchisees who are our ultimate end customers. And then if the brand wants to go directly to the franchisee and provide the service, great. We can work that into the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, or we can go directly to the franchisee. We're set up for marketing. We can market directly to the franchisee to make sure that what the brand's saying and what we're saying are in line. Then we can take their orders directly from the franchisee, right? Have a direct relationship with them. And all of our agreements, everything, because it's at such scale here, are all electronic click-to-accept agreements. And
Well, you
then
make it easy, right? To sign up for something that people don't necessarily find easy or they don't think of. So the easier it
exactly
is,
right.
the more they're going to accept it, right? But actually, what you're ensuring is consistency. And within any brand, franchise or franchisee, in today's market, they have so many services that the guest is able to buy
right.
that if you lose that connectivity, you can't take those gift cards across the way. Or the loyalty programs. Those are industry, or they're cross-chain wide applications, and even if you're a smaller operator, they are too. And if you lose that, you have lost your customer base because they expect it, and they don't really want to know whether you're a franchisee or not. They want to just know that you're so and so, and you're offering that service.
one thing I like to say is that Hughes makes better customers. Let's take that back a step. How do we make better customers? When you have a customer come into your store, your location, your gas station, your restaurant, your franchise location, that customer has certain expectations for what that experience will be like. And if there are 10 people in line and they're last, they expect that line to move at a certain pace. And that's presuming that all the systems are up and running, the connectivity's there, the backup's in place, which should be transparent to everyone, that the security's working, that loyalty's working, that all the systems are working. So if that customer is able to progress through that 10-person line within a reasonable period of time, they're a happy customer.
So you're the marketing guy, right? So if I were to look at this, I'm trying to get the pizzazz out of that line about making better customers. But in essence, what you do is Hughes enables, better, customer service,
Exactly right.
or provides the services that ensure better customers. And by the way, you can figure that out either way. The customer could be the franchisee, the customer could be the guest, right? So I want to keep that point. Got it. There's one other thing that you said earlier. Did I hear you correctly? And I know I didn't get this exact, but something about that you have all of these Mensa engineers somewhere in there. What was the exact terminology?
Mensa caliber engineers.
Okay, so speaking of Mensa caliber engineers, I don't want to avoid Tim, who's sitting here, because I got to tell you, I've known Tim for a long time, and as the business technologist, I would put him in that category because every time I always used to joke with Tim that he'd be the first one to ask the question, but boy, you better be prepared for the question because it wasn't going to be a softball out there. But also, Tim, I was sort of hoping you might add to this because you also cover a lot of industries.
Yes.
And you study those industries, even ones that are not in our direct purview.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering how you see, and I want to talk about the specific subject. So, first of all, starting with managed service provider, is there a difference between the expectations of different industries, and is the food and beverage industry more complex or easier than other ones?
I think different industries are at different stages of their maturity and the transformation. A big reason why I spend so much time looking at all the different industries is you need more use cases. So when it comes to digital transformation, just looking at one industry, there's not enough success stories, not enough failures inside of one industry to learn everything that there is. So go back maybe 5, 7 years ago, a lot of my time was invested in retail because retail was leading the charge at the time. I was looking at the C-store industry because it was coming up behind it with a lot of regulatory pressures that were kind of transforming the industry. Restaurant, if I were to characterize it, I should, maybe in order of maturity, let's start with retail. They used to be way ahead of everybody. This is pre-COVID kind of statistics.
So they're not ahead anymore?
Implications. I think COVID kind of reset everything quite. So if I were to look at the world pre-COVID, I would have put retail way ahead, restaurant behind them, C-stores behind them, maybe banking back there, and then maybe the government in a distant fifth. During the COVID, that whole lineup, pecking order changed dramatically. Restaurants ran to digital in order to survive through the COVID years. The government, shockingly enough, took advantage of that COVID break, if you will, to leapfrog, and it created a capacity for embracing technology that I've never seen before. I had government, state, local, federal agencies talking about some of the most advanced things that I've seen in terms of AI ops, edge computing, and the like. So their embracement of technology was outstanding.
And if the government, who has a semi-unlimited pocketbook with the military and education, is able to spend on it and develop it, that means that these industries that weren't necessarily at the forefront are able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and then I would also throw into their banking too as well. Banking has always been looking at this transition from a teller-based, transaction-based kind of solution to trying to create this kind of universal kind of teller type solution. So when you look at all these different types of initiatives and how they're using technology and how they're embracing technology, you start to get a picture of kind of what the opportunity is from a business perspective across these different industries.
And I don't see much difference, by the way, between C-store and food service, especially the quick service and fast casual segments, because to me, this looks like ripe locations for the two to collaborate and come together. Now, they've been doing joint units for years, but they were sort of separate. So were some retailers like Walmart would have, McDonald's in or something. But it looks like the industry is now ripe for, collaboration and partnerships.
And there are some meaningful changes that are taking place in these industries. So taking the convenience stores just as a quick example, you look at some of the trends, the rise of EV, more so actually the rise of higher mileage vehicles and the like. It basically creates a demand destruction as it relates to fuel. So, and then demand destruction also as it relates to tobacco too as well. So fuel is on the decline, tobacco is on the decline. The C-store industry is racing toward hot prepared foods as the place of profitability. If you look in the C-store industry, that's where the money is.
And
that's
I'd
where
correct that, by the way. They probably always had pizza and hot dogs on rollers and things like that, and chicken.
Yes.
However, we're now talking about hot prepared fresh foods, and sometimes now in competition with people who are doing fresh food because of the cooking methods and things.
And it's not your pizza of decades ago.
Right.
It's
fresh made pizza.
It's premium experience. They're going head to head with the pizza restaurants with a quality product, and it's all about quality in many cases. So we're seeing a dramatic elevation in terms of the C-store. So when we think about the restaurant industry, there's going to be a meaningful fight for stomach from the C-store, from the grocery, from the dollar stores, and in addition as well.
From the IFBTA standpoint, it's been a pleasure to again, have Hughes, our founding global industry partner, join us today and share their views in a number of different areas, and making sure that we understand not only where they've been and where they are, but also where they're going. And thank you to Tim Tang, the business technologist, I should say Mensa business technologist, and Carl Udler, the Senior Director of Marketing, for joining us today and supporting the IFBTA.
Thank you, Rob.